My name is Eleanor. I stepped slowly out of the kitchen, wiping my hands dry with a kitchen towel. Deep inside the apartment, in the spacious, bright room I had selflessly given up to the young family just a month ago, there was a deafening racket. 6-year-old Ethan and 4-year-old Ryan were screaming at each other, fighting over a giant plastic excavator. The sharp sound of plastic slamming against the hardwood floors throbbed in my temples. Dear viewers, please let us know where you are watching from and which region or country you are in. Please like this video, watch it until the end, and subscribe to our channel. Your support is very important to us. Thank you so much. We're leaving. We'll be back around 2 a.m., so don't lock the bottom deadbolt. Paul stood in the dim light of the narrow hallway, hurriedly and nervously pulling on his jacket. He studiously avoided eye contact, pretending his zipper was jammed. Next to him, tapping her feet impatiently in brand-new high-heeled pumps, stood his wife, Megan. She wore a heavy, sweet evening perfume that immediately filled the entryway, completely suffocating the familiar, cozy smell of home. "Where are you going?" I asked in a flat, emotionless voice. It was 8 p.m. "It's Friday, Mom, but we told you about this." Paul jerked his shoulder in annoyance, checking his pockets for his keys and wallet. "It's Megan's best friend's birthday tonight. She's celebrating at a restaurant down by the waterfront. We pitched in for the gift and dinner 2 weeks ago. We can't just skip it." "You didn't say a word to me. You're telling me right now, when you're both dressed, wearing your shoes, and standing at the door." Megan adjusted the delicate strap of her expensive handbag with a graceful gesture and looked at me with a condescending, patronizing smile. "Eleanor, why are you starting something out of nothing?" Megan said. "The boys are well fed. We turned on cartoons for them on the iPad. They'll play for a bit, calm down, and go to sleep on their own. They're independent. Just keep an eye on them so they don't fight or tear the apartment apart. Paul and I need to catch our breath once in a while. You know, we have a personal life too. We're young. We want to enjoy ourselves, not just live among diapers and dirty dishes." Without waiting for an answer or even a nod, Megan spun around toward the heavy front door, clicked the deadbolt, and walked out onto the landing, her heels clicking loudly. Paul gave me a guilty, rushed nod, muttered something incoherent, and slipped out right behind her like a quick shadow. The heavy door slammed shut, cutting them off from household problems. I stood alone in the empty hallway, staring at the closed door. In the bedroom, where the newlyweds had moved in with all their luggage, something heavy collapsed with a loud crash. It sounded like the coat rack. Immediately after, a piercing, high-pitched scream from one of the kids rang out. I didn't reach for my phone to call my son, nor did I yell curses at the door. I simply took a deep breath, neatly hung the kitchen towel on the bathroom hook, and went to break up a fight between children who felt like total strangers to me. This evening was the third one like this in the last endlessly long month. At first, these outings were framed as innocent, one-time favors. "Mom, we're just running to Home Depot to look at wallpaper. It's impossible with the kids. They whine and grab everything." Then the stakes grew. "We're going to the movies for a couple of hours. We haven't had a date night in forever. We need to keep the spark alive." And every time, I gently agreed. I had voluntarily welcomed my only son into my cozy 3-bedroom condo specifically to help them get on their feet. They were saving up for a down payment, dreaming of getting their own mortgage. Renting a place in our neighborhood would have eaten up the lion's share of their modest budget. So, out of pure kindness, I offered them 2 rooms, keeping only the small bedroom facing the quiet backyard for myself. I knew it would be cramped and that my peaceful routine would be disrupted, but I genuinely believed families should support each other during tough times. How bitterly mistaken I was. I didn't close my eyes until 2 a.m. The boys, spoiled and left to their own devices, flatly refused to go to bed. They ran screaming through the narrow hallway, crashed into doors, demanded apple juice, then chocolate chip cookies, and then hysterically threw tantrums demanding a different cartoon. Megan, while getting ready for her party, hadn't left them clean pajamas or even told me where their toothbrushes were. I spent an hour searching through their room, tripping over plastic toys, Lego blocks, and crumpled clothes in the dark. When they finally passed out around 11:30, I lay on my bed over the spread and listened to the low hum of the old refrigerator in the kitchen. My legs ached terribly after a long work week, and a dull, heavy headache throbbed in my temples, one that painkillers couldn't touch. The sound of the key in the lock came at 2:30. In the hallway, Megan was giggling drunkenly, dropping something on the floor. Paul hissed at her angrily, begging her to be quiet so she wouldn't wake me. I squeezed my eyes shut, clenched my teeth, and turned over, pulling the blanket up to my chin. I decided to save this difficult conversation for the morning. Late at night, emotions make terrible advisors. Saturday started painfully late and heavy. I woke up at 8 a.m. out of habit, washed my face with icy water, brewed a cup of strong black coffee, and sat at the kitchen table, looking out the window at the gray morning yard. The kids woke up at 9 a.m., burst into the kitchen, and loudly demanded breakfast. Their parents were dead asleep behind closed doors. I quietly pulled out milk, cooked oatmeal, fed the boys, wiped their sticky faces, and sent them to the living room to watch TV on low volume. Paul didn't show up in the kitchen until 11 a.m., disheveled, with a puffy, unshaven face and a guilty look. He poured himself a full glass of filtered water, chugged it down, and reached for the coffee maker. "Sit down," I said quietly, but in a tone that made it impossible to disobey. Paul froze mid-motion, instantly catching that stern maternal tone he had known since childhood. He set the empty glass on the counter and sat down heavily on the stool across from me. "Did something happen? Were the boys wild last night?" he asked hoarsely, rubbing his forehead nervously and avoiding my eyes. "Did something happen? I will no longer babysit your children whenever you demand it. Not now. Not ever." Paul frowned in frustration. "Mom, here we go again. It's not like we go out every single day. We need a break too. We work like crazy, save up for a house, deny ourselves everything. You don't ask me. You give me ultimatums. Without blinking, you leave 2 undisciplined kids who don't listen to me, won't go to sleep on time, and turn my apartment upside down in one evening. Paul, these are your wife's children from a previous marriage, and they feel like strangers to me. I owe them nothing." Megan appeared silently in the kitchen doorway, wearing a short, glamorous burgundy silk robe, her hair messy from sleep. Hearing my last words, she crossed her arms over her chest theatrically and leaned against the doorframe, radiating outrage. "Eleanor, are you actually serious right now?" Megan's voice was sharp, offended, and full of genuine disbelief. "These are Paul's kids, too. He took responsibility for them. He raises them, clothes them. We are a family, and in normal, loving families, the older generation helps the young without complaint. My mother watches my brother's kids for days, if needed, and she never complains about being tired." I turned a cold, unblinking glare onto my daughter-in-law. If your saintly mother is willing to babysit them for days on end, wonderful, take the kids to her. I work 5 days a week, 9 to 5. On Friday night, I have every right to come home to my own apartment, lie on my couch, and watch my TV in absolute peace. Not break up fights between unruly kids or clean spilled juice off my hardwood floors. Mom? You're exaggerating? Paul tried desperately to diffuse the storm. They're normal, active boys. Megan and I are just exhausted from the daily grind. We need to keep our relationship alive. If we stay locked in 4 walls, we'll go crazy and get divorced in a year. Would that make you happier? Tell me. I looked at my adult son and felt a wave of disgust at his pathetic words, at this childish attempt to shift the burden of his marriage onto my shoulders. When you, as a grown man, made the choice to marry a woman with 2 small children from another marriage, you should have clearly understood the level of responsibility involved, I said evenly, delivering each word like driving nails into wood. Children aren't stuffed animals you can lock in a back room with some food while you go drink wine at a restaurant. Children require constant care. You must handle your own life choices and problems, not dump them on me under the guise of family values. Megan gasped dramatically and took an aggressive step into the kitchen. You know what, Eleanor? That is just cruel and heartless. You let us move in here saying you wanted to help us save for a mortgage faster, and now you're intentionally squeezing us out. You see that we're saving every penny. If we start hiring expensive weekend babysitters now, we'll never buy that damn house. Then you simply won't go to restaurants and movies until you've saved up and bought your own home, I replied in an icy tone. You will stay home, like millions of other parents, and raise your kids yourselves. You just hate my sons. Megan's voice cracked into a hysterical screech. You were against our marriage from day one. You're doing this on purpose. You want Paul to leave me. I couldn't care less about your marriage, Megan. I assure you, I only care about my apartment, my nervous system, and my peace of mind. I slowly stood up from the table. I didn't raise my voice, didn't wave my arms. I just stood straight and looked at these 2 immature adults who believed the whole world should bow to their personal desires. My apartment is a place for my well-deserved rest. It is not a free hotel, a charity, or a 24/7 daycare service. Moving forward, the rules are as follows. Starting today, you handle the kids entirely on your own. The apartment must be completely quiet after 9 p.m. No toys scattered in the hallway, bathroom, or kitchen. If the boys run around screaming and damaging things while you turn a blind eye, you will pack your bags that very evening. Paul jumped up, knocking over his stool. Mom, what are you talking about? You're giving an ultimatum to your only son in his own home? Do you realize you're destroying our family with your own hands? Over some petty household issue, just because you had to watch the boys for a couple of hours once a week? I've said everything I had to say. I calmly picked up my empty coffee mug, rinsed it, and placed it in the sink. If my house rules are completely unacceptable to you, find a rental property today. You can save for your mortgage there on your own independent terms. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving them standing with their mouths open in deafening silence. The following week turned into an exhausting, silent standoff, a cold war in a shared living space. Megan stopped acknowledging me entirely, passing me with a stony face. She began making loud phone calls to her mother in the hallway, complaining about her toxic, crazy mother-in-law who hated innocent children and tormented a young family. Paul walked around gloomy as a thundercloud, trying to talk to me a few times, but every conversation turned into guilty manipulation. "You're throwing us out like dogs. We mean nothing to you now, right?" I didn't react to their provocation. It was as if I had developed impenetrable armor. I came home from work, ate dinner quietly, locked myself in my room, and enjoyed reading books. I saw that they purposefully left dirty dishes in the sink for days to attract flies, and left crumbs on the table out of spite. It was petty, passive-aggressive revenge from an offended Megan. I simply washed my own plate, wiped down my half of the table, and went to my room. I wasn't going to cater to their childish protest. The following Friday evening, history repeated itself, but this time as blatant disrespect. Around 7 p.m., I stepped out of my room to turn on the kettle and saw a familiar sight. Megan was fully dressed up, applying bright lipstick in front of the hallway mirror. Paul was nervously tying his sneakers. The kids were sitting on the couch in the living room, glued to their tablets. "We're going out to visit friends," Paul said curtly through clenched teeth, without looking up. "We'll be back by midnight." Without saying a word, I walked to the coat rack, put on my cashmere coat, slipped into my fall boots, adjusted my hair in the mirror, nearly bumping shoulders with my stunned daughter-in-law. "Where are you going this late?" Megan froze, lipstick tube still in hand, eyes wide. "Out. To the movies? A restaurant? A walk?" "Back by midnight," I replied serenely, picking up my purse. "What about the kids?" Paul's voice cracked into a falsetto as he stood up straight. "We're leaving. We had plans." "You're leaving, and I'm leaving. The kids are entirely yours. It's up to you to figure out what to do with them. Take them with you or stay home." I decisively opened the front door. "You can't do this. You can't leave them alone in an empty apartment. They're 4 and 6 years old." Megan shrieked frantically, rushing to block the exit. "I'm not leaving them alone. You are here, their legal parents. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy your night out, youngsters." I stepped around my daughter-in-law, walked out into the cool hallway, and pressed the elevator button. Swear words, shrieks from Megan, and furious yelling from my son echoed behind me. The elevator arrived almost instantly. I stepped into the bright car, pushed the button for the first floor, and the metal doors closed smoothly, shutting out the noise forever. I strolled to the nearest shopping mall, bought a ticket for a French movie, and then spent a long, delightful time drinking warm sea buckthorn tea at a cozy rooftop cafe, watching the glowing city lights through a massive panoramic window. My phone vibrated endlessly in my bag, followed by long text messages. I didn't answer or read them. There was no panic or guilt in my heart, only a mild, dull irritation that full-grown adults had to be taught such basic lessons in personal responsibility. I returned home around midnight. Every light in the apartment was on. In the hallway stood 3 packed duffel bags and 2 plastic suitcases. Megan, her face red and swollen from tears and rage, was aggressively throwing the last bags of kids' toys out of the room. The boys, dressed in winter coats, sat quietly on the bags, spooked by the sudden commotion. Paul came out of the kitchen, pale as a sheet, his jaw clenched tight. "Well, you got what you wanted, didn't you?" he said with quiet hatred. "We're leaving right now to move into Megan's mother's 2-bedroom apartment. Tomorrow after work, I'll come back for the rest of our stuff." "That is your conscious choice," I answered calmly, taking off my coat and hanging it up. My choice was to live with a loving mother who supports me in tough times, not a cold, heartless woman who doesn't care about her own son's happiness. Paul snapped, clenching his fists. "You drove us out. You refused to help us even once. You're just a selfish old woman." I slowly hung my coat on a wooden hanger and turned to face my enraged son. "I let you into my home completely free of charge, Paul. I gave you 2 of my best rooms and squeezed myself into the smallest bedroom. All these months, I paid for all the utilities, water, and electricity you burned through. I bought the groceries you ate with great appetite. If in your distorted worldview all of that counts as never helped and selfishness, then it really is best for you to move out right now. Paying thousands of dollars in rent to a cold landlord will quickly teach you both to appreciate what loving people give you for free." Megan angrily grabbed the kids, jerking the younger one so hard he whimpered. "Come on, Paul. What's the point of talking to her? She has no heart. She's nobody to us." They left noisily. Paul cursed under his breath as he dragged heavy suitcases down the stairs because the freight elevator was stuck on the top floor. I waited silently until their footsteps faded, then closed the heavy front door, turned the deadbolt twice, and slid the lower latch into place. A soothing, healing silence instantly settled over the spacious apartment. No one was running around screaming, no loud cartoons were blaring from the TV, and no cabinet doors were slamming shut. The air felt cleaner. I walked into the kitchen. Dirty, sticky cups and cookie wrappers littered the table. With one swift motion of a rag, I swept the trash into the bin, put their cups in the sink, and turned on the warm water. I felt no regret or grief. I physically felt the tight muscles in my neck and back relax, feeling the constant background tension that had weighed on me for the past month melt away. Tomorrow morning, I decided, I would hire a professional cleaning service to scrub the rooms clean of their presence. I'd move my potted plants back in and buy new light curtains. My son called me only a month and a half later. His voice sounded hollow, exhausted and broken. He told me they had rented a run-down 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town, spending almost half of his salary on rent. Megan threw daily tantrums, demanding a nanny because she couldn't handle 2 kids and house chores alone. But they had no spare money at all. Their dream of buying a house had been postponed indefinitely. Paul hesitated for a long time, then timidly hinted that maybe they could start over, that they realized their mistakes and wouldn't act like that anymore. But I gently yet firmly steered the conversation toward the weather and his health. There was no going back. My home, my fortress, belonged once again and forever to me alone. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. We would love to know what you think.